This is Drink Talk, where we try to solve the world's problems one drink at a time. Each week in this podcast, the topics of today and tomorrow are discussed while we sample some of the finest libations known to man. Join us. We are your hosts, Brian and Britt.
Check us out. All right.
Hey.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Welcome back to the program.
Hola.
Good to be here.
Yeah, we are joined today by Erik, who's a returning guest host and brother-in-law to Britt and I here.
What's up, guys?
And our newest guest host,
JW.
Oh.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little background here.
Well, sure. In addition to working a full-time job, I do a little writing, blogging, a few different subjects, sports, a little politics, and some life coaching as well. I actually kind of have a specialty in that respect. I coach parents and teachers of autistic and ADD children. Being mildly autistic myself, I teach, parents and teachers how to work with the kids and how to train and motivate them.
Nice. That's really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. Before the program, we talked a little bit about how your speech. You learned to do that through watching or the commentating of the sports and all that.
Yeah, it's really funny. I notice that life is a school of sorts. I mean, you can get a lesson from anything if you really look for one. And in my case, when I teach fellow autistics and other people with social anxiety how to hold a conversation, I generally recommend they listen to a sports cast just to observe how the play-by-play and the color commentator build on each other. Like each will build on what the other says. I mean, they're not trying to argue. They're not trying to interject their own. They don't stay on different pages. They always try to get on the same page, build off one another, and the chemistry they develop over time is something that, to a certain extent, we can develop over time with people around us.
Nice. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool.
Very cool.
And why are you here, Erik?
I love the foosball.
Because you're ready to talk about some football.
Yeah, that's what we're going to be talking about for football. But before we get into the talk, we are going to do our tasty beverage for the evening here. So,
yeah, you were the one to buy beverages this time around. I did bring a few though too.
I know. And it was supposed to be you. Once I noticed the number,
it's not like FOMO, like fear of missing out. It's like fear of not having enough.
Has that ever happened here though?
Yeah, I've actually we ended the show, then I had to go and for the after talk to hang out. I had to go and get some more.
Yeah, but not during.
Yeah, that would have been a great show.
Yeah.
Well, there was one time that we had a limited amount. We're like, oh, we only have this much to drink. Okay, we'll drink real slow during the show.
Yeah, I think it was Mitchell's first time on the program, and he wasn't sure how the layout was going, and so
it was all good.
Yeah, it was good, and it was a really good talk, and I know that. But this first one that we're going to have here is Nebraska Pils.
This almost looks like a Bud Light, Brian.
Yeah, it's a Pilsner. So
Pilsner, there you go.
And it's 55.1% ABV, 30 IBU. So a little lower on there. It's by Nebraska Brewing Company, local people here.
Yeah.
So actually everything that we're going to be, at least that I brought, is all local stuff. I've got 2 Omaha and 1 Lincoln.
That's local enough. I mean, it's Nebraska.
Sounds like a great pregame.
Exactly.
Ooh.
But that's why we started with this. And if you
hey, don't jinx us. Don't make it rain outside.
Yeah, we're gonna get into that. So did you get a little picture of the can art?
Oh yeah,
there?
So. Let's see here. This one would probably be better to focus in on. You get one of you guys want to hold one of those up? We'll see what we got here. Yeah, there we go. That looks way better. Awesome. Yeah, cool. That works. So, this is from Nebraska Brewing Company, which we've had on the show quite a few times.
Yeah,
we actually need to get them on the show, though.
Yeah, I like to drink local.
So cheersy.
Cheers. Cheers. Clinky, since the table is a lot larger.
Now, since I haven't heard very much about the Nebraska Brewing Company, do they also have a bar, or do they just sell to bars?
Yeah, so they have 2 locations actually. So they have a large location down in Shadow Lake. That used to be the brewery, but now they've moved everything out to their larger location, which is on 108th and Harrison, and that's more their tap room.
Okay.
They do serve food at both.
Sure.
The one down in Shadow Lake is set up more like it almost has more of a pub feel, like you would go over to Ireland. There's a lot of heavy wood. It's really beautiful in there. They do have the tanks still, but the one out west on 108th and Harrison is set up more like they have a large party room and it's more open and there's some arcade games and all that. It's really, but they have this giant picture window where you can see the operation of them brewing and all that.
Oh, that's outstanding.
Yeah. Yep. Good folks down there. I've had talks with them, a lot of them. But, yeah, we do need to actually get them on the program. That'd be a good time since we do drink a lot of their beer. First impressions?
Very good. Good Pilsner. Like, if I was
for a Pilsner, it's flavorful.
You know, I'm not one for Bud Light anymore or Coors Light. And, frankly, we should be drinking that on the show since we're going to be talking about football. And that's what football's all sponsored from.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, if I was going to go with something light, this would probably be it. This is good.
It's light in color, but I'm a little surprised at the flavor because there is flavor to it.
Sure.
So a lot more than Bud Light, Miller Light.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I got. I would say
wonderful,
it's
bright,
refreshing.
and pale in color.
Good,
satisfying malt and classic Nebraskan.
It is
classically Nebraskan.
It is a little malt forward.
I'd like the giant big N on here, and then it says brewed in between it.
Mm-hmm.
So, like brewed in Nebraska.
I'm getting some hoppiness, like in the back.
A little bit. They do have hops here on the can, so I wouldn't say
those would be grains, Britt.
They look like hops to me, not grains. Grains definitely look different than that.
Yeah, those are grains.
Grains? I thought they were more rigid. Whatever.
What's your opinion on
I'm
that?
going to say grains.
All right, grains.
It's
fine.
All right.
Amber waves of greens.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. All right. Well, let's move into the topic a little bit. And we did say football, but more specifically, American football.
Yes.
For those of you that are listening
Not
outside of the
soccer.
United States.
Oh!
Oh.
Yeah. Is watched by at least 5 times more people than the Super Bowl is.
Right.
But yeah, let's talk a little bit about what just happened here locally.
It's a sad day in Nebraska history.
It
Look,
is.
the world just wasn't ready for the frost era yet.
Yeah, it was. And what'd you say? You looked it up on your phone earlier today. The last time that a game was canceled.
Yeah, so the last time a Nebraska game was canceled was in '43, and it was because of World War II travel restrictions.
Oh, so it wasn't even weather.
No, this is the first weather cancellation in university history.
That's crazy. That's crazy. I want you to talk a little bit because they were going against Akron 2 nights ago. Last night.
Last night.
Thank you. Yeah.
Akron. Yeah.
Trying to put it way behind me.
Yeah. Well, that and I worked a lot.
We've
of the
moved
weekends.
on.
Yeah, we're all moving on. So you had some things to say about Akron and how you feel about the way that went.
Akron, I thought.
It's Akron.
Akron. Yes.
Akron.
Acorn.
Aaron.
The Zips.
There you go.
Yeah, because it was, for those of you that don't know, the game was supposed to go on last night at 7:00, and it had a weather delay for the rain, and then they actually canceled it at 9:55, and then they were supposed to play Sunday morning, but did not do. Well, why don't you talk about that, JW?
Well, for starters, from what I've been able to piece together, Fox and the University of Nebraska actually wanted to play the game this morning. Now, at least as of this morning, the AD or Coach Frost hadn't been available to talk to the media. I decided to wear a little tinfoil and say maybe they're all trying to get their stories straight. But they hadn't talked to the media. But reports were that Fox and the University of Nebraska wanted to play the game this morning, but apparently the Zips hadn't planned for possible weather delays, despite multiple forecasts saying something like this could happen. Reports were that they had checked out of their hotel rooms and they were ready to take a flight back home at 2 a.m. This morning. And to me, that showed a terrible lack of preparation on their part. I think that they're not preparing for possible weather delays was a very foolish move.
Right. They saw this coming.
Yes.
Well, do we know why they had to get back so quickly? Because if they had flights out the next morning.
Actually, I just pulled this up because Moose had a release. All right, the Nebraska AD, he had a release a couple hours ago addressing the deal, and the Akron AD just had. This is courtesy of the Lincoln Journal-Star, an hour ago. This is from the Akron AD. Quote: Last night during the lightning delay, University of Akron tried to secure accommodations for the team within a reasonable distance from Lincoln. These accommodations were not available or would have required our team to stay in multiple locations, which is not in the best interest of our team and student athletes.
Right, you don't want to split up the team.
You know what, though? I mean, I understand why it might have been a little uncomfortable, but I don't think it should have been a deal breaker. I mean, I don't think it's right to do that.
Well, and they had $1.7 million on the line. That's what they were getting paid to come to play.
Exactly.
Wow.
And I'm thinking for over $1 million, you can buy a lot of logistics.
Oh, yeah.
And so my point is, like, things could have been done. I have a high school friend whose husband is a Lincoln police officer, and he was able to confirm that they did have enough police and security, who volunteered to work a Sunday morning game. And I'm pretty sure
Well, not only that, though, you'd also have to get the vendors in there. You'd have to get the people pouring beers. You'd have to get people selling popcorn.
They don't have beers at.
Well, you know what I mean. The vendor people. You would have to get them in there as well.
Oh, certainly. And I mean, I'm not arguing the fact that it would have been difficult, but it wouldn't have been impossible. I mean, and I'm pretty sure that.
Oh, they want to make money, so.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And people were saying, well, what are the players, going to eat? And I said, you know what? I'm pretty sure that Nebraska would have helped,
Absolutely.
They
considering
would have.
Right?
Considering
Go through the buffet line that the
Cafeteria.
basketball or the football
table.
players go through. Just
the
go
train.
through.
Yeah.
Well, because people forget that Nebraska also had a lot to lose financially. I mean, if the Huskers end up having to refund, 80,000 tickets, even at face value, I mean, we're talking about another
Substantial. A substantial sum.
We're talking about millions of dollars too.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure that Nebraska would have made their facilities available to Akron if Akron would have been willing to stay. And but instead they just decided to again, they weren't prepared for a weather delay. They just wanted to I think they checked out early because they just wanted to be cheap and get and just keep as much of their 1.7 million as they could. And I think that as things are, since they had a chance to play the game this morning but refused, I don't think they should get a dime.
No.
Yeah, and it was raining a little bit, but not bad. I mean, last night there was a lot of lightning, so I'll give them.
So
Yeah.
moving forward, they're talking about December 1st, that weekend.
They're
of
talking
December
about
1st.
building a dome.
But
And making Iowa pay
the
for it.
possibility of making up the game December 1st. For me, and you can chime in here too. Like, I think the only way they do that is if Nebraska's 5-6 and we needed a 6th win to get to a bowl game.
Right.
I mean, I agree with that, and really, I mean, even if they do hold that game, I mean, we're talking about people who spent hundreds of dollars. If they brought a family to the game, I mean, potentially thousands, for airfare, hotel accommodations, things like that, to see Scott Frost's
His initial
first game,
yeah.
in September, and Nebraska, if the University of Nebraska thinks they're going to make fans happy by saying, oh, why don't you come back in December and watch the last game of the season, and
It's just not the same.
well, exactly. Not to mention that people who hold these tickets basically have a choice between cheering for Nebraska to make the conference championship or potentially getting a ticket to the game, because I mean that's the weekend of the conference championship, and you also have to hope that Akron doesn't make their conference championship, even though last year they did very well, and it's very conceivable that they're going to make their conference championship this year.
Yeah, I think it loses its luster for the rematch.
A lot of my friends, though, I think season ticket holders. I have family and friends that are all season ticket holders. People that were at the game last night I talked to, they're just more frustrated. And this is just a small group,
Sure.
It's not I'm not speaking for all the fans who had tickets, but they were more frustrated they didn't get to see the Huskers play the first game of the Frost era,
Right.
than the fact that they spent the money on the tickets and they don't get to see a game.
Yeah,
Right.
I was telling them right before you got here that I counted no less than 6 parties in our neighborhood where people were hosting Husker parties, and how much did they spend for that? And that's just my neighborhood,
Right.
all across.
How much
Omaha,
they spend
my
on the
folks,
meat?
my,
and the-
we were. I was over at my folks last night.
Yeah,
We had tons of food.
yeah. I'm sure $500 for a party is not inconceivable. Between alcohol and food and all that.
I schlepped my smoker over there and smoked some ribs. and-
Man, well, at least you ate well.
Yeah,
Well,
we did.
And for the record, I mean, I agree with you that it's more about frustration not seeing the game. The thing is that at this point, money becomes a real issue. Not just the potential payment to to the university. I was saying in honor of their team name, Nebraska should give them Zip.
Oh.
But
No mercy.
but I said, now I don't know if if this would hold up officially, but I'm pretty sure that with all of the Nebraska fans who went to Lincoln for the game, I'm pretty sure a few of them are seeing a lawyer and seeing if they can if they can go after Akron, because I mean, if I spent hundreds or thousands of dollars, I mean, I would be very tempted.
Sue them before they sue you.
I-
One of those things.
You know what? I mean, I'd be kind of tempted just because, I guess on the principle of the thing, because I mean, they've gone 800 miles away, and they kind of said, well, at least we got out of this unscathed. And I mean, I think there are some Husker fans who want a lawful, peaceful way to go after them, and like hitting them in the pocketbook is the one chance they've got.
True.
I'm sure somebody will do it.
Yep.
I'm sure it'll
Or
happen.
try to at least.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, it goes right down to the shooting they had there in Vegas. It wasn't the Luxor, but it was the whatever hotel that was.
Sure.
Essentially, the hotel is suing the people who got shot, the victims.
Yeah, I forget what
the
it was
hotel gets
yeah.
sued by them.
It was a counter.
I'm like,
I thought
oh,
it was,
man.
Yeah, I thought it was a countersuit on something.
It was
Oh man, it's a
Seems
sad
terrible.
day for society.
It really
right.
is. It
That
really
that was the worst case scenario there. But
Yeah.
this is weird. I mean, it could happen though.
Well,
I don't know. I was just gonna say, like the whole weather, act of God type thing.
Yeah.
Like,
It's unpredictable.
Yes, but they could have replayed Sunday morning had they had the appropriate lodging.
and I think that's a central issue where I mean if going by that report you brought up, I mean the athletic director is admitting the situation would have been difficult and uncomfortable, but not impossible.
right?
They could have put it on.
Yeah.
And the fact that they walked away from it, and the other thing that kind of upsets me as a fan is that Nebraska at this point should be officially 1-0 if we offered them a chance to to replay the game, and and they walked away. I mean, I understand why they want to leave the door open for a repeat game, but at this point I think for official purposes we ought to be 1-0 right now.
Well, and they say the teams,
If we're a good team.
the best progress for the team comes between week 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep, and we don't get that.
Yep.
And our opponent next
Man,
weekend.
He's having
Colorado.
Scott Frost is having some punches, man. You got your backup quarterback leave, and then
You know what though? I bet you that dude is completely optimistic about this whole entire thing, though, and he has to be. I mean,
Right.
from the hat he wears, he has to.
You're right. Yep.
Oh, Frost?
Yeah.
I think he has a lot of reasons to be optimistic about it. And my favorite thing about his coaching so far to read about has been the strength and conditioning program. I think that alone will make a lot of difference. Sorry if I'm veering off a bit.
It's okay.
I've noticed that our biggest weakness under Coach Riley was the way we had a lot of problems converting third and short. I even remember the game against Brigham Young. People say, "Oh, we lost on a Hail Mary." We did not lose on a Hail Mary. We lost because we
couldn't convert third down.
We couldn't convert 3rd and 1. There is no way an offensive line should fail to get a push that many times in a game. We were very poorly conditioned, and I found out within the last couple of months that, among other things, our offensive linemen were not doing back squats in the gym. They were doing front squats instead, and that doesn't give you nearly the same leg strength.
Mm.
This is crazy. The exercises they were doing. That's kind of crazy.
They put a lot of stuff out about that. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, and there wasn't a strength and conditioning program. It was kind of like lift if you want.
Yeah. You're on the honor system. Like,
yeah,
did you go to the gym today? Yeah. Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, and there wasn't any accountability amongst the players either. So your peers weren't holding you accountable, and you weren't holding peers accountable. And
people forget about that. People have forgotten about how important Boyd Epley was to the athletic program. In the 80s and 90s, especially. Boyd Epley. I think at one point he literally wrote a book on strength and conditioning programs for college and even in the pros. I think he invented some of the plyometric techniques that and there are some simple differences, like just to give people kind of an idea, if that's all right, of the difference. A back squat is when you put the bar on your shoulders behind your neck and you go down up. A front squat is when you hold the bar on your front shoulders and your collarbone and you go down and up. I go to the gym like a couple times a week. I'm not really good at it, but I love reading about people who are. So the point is, you can't front squat as much weight as you can back squat because of arm placement, leverage, and things like that. So when you have offensive linemen who are not allowed to back squat, they don't develop nearly as much strength, and so as a result, when blocking depends on brute force, they can't surge forward as well, and they can't handle a bull rush as well either.
Well, and that's kind of a lot of what the game is brute force.
And like you said, Boyd Epley, he wrote the book figuratively and literally on strength and conditioning. You go back to the 90s, and we had the best strength and conditioning program in college football. Yes. You watch some of those bowl games. Right. Miami, was it 97?
January 1st in 95.
Or 95, yeah, the 95 game. Yep. Excuse me, sorry. And Warren Sapp is taking oxygen on the sideline.
Yeah, and his backup, The Rock.
Well, and that's kind of, as like Nebraska, even if we were up at that time period, even if we were up against a better team, we would just outlast them. Yes. In fourth quarter, we'd just take them because our guys were that conditioned that the other ones are huffing and puffing, and we're like, we got more.
This is fine. No big deal.
Yep. So there's a lot to be said about the conditioning part of that.
Jeez.
I kind of want to move. We did spend quite a bit of time on Nebraska football.
Yeah.
And this is about American football.
Are you ready for football?
American in general. So why don't we move kind of into just American football in general, which has kind of a rich history here. A lot of people think that baseball is America's pastime.
It is.
It is, but still the NFL is watched way more.
Well, yeah, here in Nebraska, we don't have a pro football team. So, right. We're going to cheer for what we got, and we got a university team, so let's do that.
Well, yeah, and it's a little more than just cheering for them. It's almost a religion here in
Nebraska.
It is
religion. How many sold-out games? 300 and plus?
I had to explain that. I've been a Pittsburgh Steelers fan for quite a while, but I lived there for about a year. And
Pittsburgh Steelers drink the Pils.
Oh, yes. And what's interesting is at the time I was living there, this was back in 2009. Steve Peterson had become athletic director there again after we'd kind of run him out of town on a rail here. Mm-hmm. And I had to explain to my friends in Pittsburgh why we hate him so badly in this state. And I said, look, I said, here, if the Pittsburgh Panthers, win, people will show up to the game. But if they don't, it's not that big a deal. I said, there's only one football team in the city that counts. But, in Nebraska, the Huskers are what we've got.
Mm-hmm.
It's the Huskers losing 3 games, that's like the Steelers going 8-8. It's not tolerated. We call for heads to roll. If that happens.
I
change the coach out.
Yes.
Britt had told me that you were a Steelers fan, so I did some trivia look up for you. And
very nice.
Are you okay with me testing you on some Steelers trivia?
You can. I
see how it goes.
I'll try. I'll try it.
All right. Do you know what the original name of the Pittsburgh Steelers was?
Like a lot of football teams in other cities, we named our team after the baseball team at the time was the Pirates until around 1940.
Well done, and I even like that you put the reference to the baseball teams because that early in the 1900s, there were some baseball teams that were converting over to playing football. So that's well done on that one.
Well, I think the San Francisco Giants, for instance, in baseball, were originally in New York, and I think the New York Giants were named after that too. So,
well, and the teams move around as well too.
Yeah.
So, it is accredited with most Super Bowl wins. Do you know how many that is?
6.
Nice. All right, you're doing really
2
well.
for 2.
Man.
You're not going to get this guy, I don't think.
All right.
All right.
The Immaculate Reception. Do you know about that?
That was when the Steelers. This was, I don't remember the exact date. It was in the early 70s. It was against the Raiders, and Terry Bradshaw threw a pass that
No need for a computer here.
bounced off of, depending on who tells the story. If you ask John Madden, it bounced off the helmet of Frenchie Fuqua. If you ask a Steelers fan, it bounced off of Jack Tatum, and Franco Harris caught it on the bounce. And took it into the end zone. Now, the reason it's so debated, and this is something that's important to bring up, at the time, if it had touched one Steeler and then another one, it would have been an incomplete pass. But if it bounced off of Jack Tatum's helmet and then Harris caught it, then it would have been a legal pass. And so
that's a hot. I'm sure that was a heated debate.
That's sort of the contrary, and
back then they really didn't have instant replay like
no,
they do nowadays.
They did, but
Perfect.
but the quality of the video wasn't as good.
Yeah.
Now, what's funny is years later, of course, John Madden ended up being like a Sunday Night Football, and so he and Al Michaels were calling a Steelers game, and it bounced off of like Hines Ward's helmet, and someone else caught it, and Al Michaels said, "Hey, that reminds me." And Madden goes, "Yeah, I know."
Yeah.
It was so that was in 1972.
Sore loser.
And actually, the Steelers, even though they are credited with the most amount of Super Bowl victories, it wasn't until 1972 that they really got any accreditation. I think that was their first playoff victory was in 1972. So after 40 years of being, a team, they finally got into the playoffs.
Yeah, Art Rooney. Revered in Pittsburgh and deservedly so. I think his weakness as a team owner is he wasn't very much of a businessman. He liked playing the horses, and he just kind of ran it as kind of a little family thing, and he just kind of kept things going. And I mean, he had some great talent over the years that he just kind of let go of because he didn't have a lot of business savvy. It was his son Dan who recently died a couple of years ago. It was Dan who he'd taken some business courses, and it was his idea to bring in Chuck Noll, and of course it was Coach Noll who drafted Terry Bradshaw, Joe Green, and all of these other like big names from the 1970s.
Mm-hmm. And I had one final and back to that Immaculate Reception, that's actually accredited with being the best play in NFL history. Debated, but yes,
debatable.
But my favorite one here is, did you know that the Steelers actually had the first African American starting quarterback in history? There were other
Really?
teams that had backup quarterbacks that were African American, but they had the first one that actually started.
Yep, I think it was Joe
you can-
Gilliam.
Well, that wasn't. Do you know the guy's name? It wasn't Joe Gilliam.
What
that was
was
the
it?
starting one.
Oh.
The reason I love this tidbit is just because of the guy's last name. He was the starting quarterback, first African American starting quarterback. It was in 1973 to 1974 season, right before Terry Bradshaw became
Right.
the starting quarterback. But his name is Willie Thrower
Oh, yeah.
as a
Right.
quarterback. I was like,
That's fitting.
perfect.
Oh,
He needs to run the ball more.
Yeah.
You know what? I mean, I'll tell you what. With as far as running the ball goes, I wish teams would do that. I mean, I'd like to see if Greenpeace, have a save the fullback campaign. I miss fullbacks. I miss them so badly. Yeah.
All right, I've got one final tidbit here.
Right.
So, do you know what famous quarterback was actually rejected by the Steelers, which was his hometown?
Well, you might be talking about how we didn't draft Dan Marino, who played for Pitt, or I'm thinking like we passed up a lot of great quarterbacks.
It was his hometown, though.
We passed. Sorry.
It was Pittsburgh was his hometown.
Okay, I'm thinking it might be Dawson, might be Unitas. We passed up on both of them.
It was Johnny Unitas.
Yeah.
Played for the Colts. Yeah.
Wealth
You
of
guys
knowledge
got a
up there.
prize for him or something?
He gets his drink talk mug.
Some peanuts on the table there for you.
Cheers.
Well
Nice.
done.
Yeah, well
Speaking of
done.
that, we need to move on to this next drink.
We
here.
do, yeah. I've got some more trivia, but that's not on the Steelers. That's in football in general. But
Eric,
yeah.
you want to pass that cup over?
Yep.
Yep. Where are we going next, Brian?
Okay, next beer that we're doing, also from local people. This is the Oktoberfest from Brickway Brewing Distillery. We actually did sample it 2 weeks ago when we did blind taste testing, and
Use that one.
I actually ended up picking it as my favorite of the Oktoberfest, even though it was not the German one. I decided to have a full can because I only had a sampler last time, so I wanted to give the full taste test on this one. And it is 5% ABV, so a little bit less than the Nebraska Pils.
Jeez.
Woo!
Kaboom.
Yeah.
Hit my eyeball there.
Hello.
My
this
screen.
I guess I shouldn't have shaken these before I brought them over. A 5% alcohol, 20 IBU, so even less on the IBU. So it's not very bitter. At 5%, you could consider this a session beer, just because
It's getting a little darker.
I'll say the color looks nice.
Yeah. Well, it is a fall beer. It's Oktoberfest, so it's a seasonal.
I'm going to be
seasonal fall
Vanna
beer.
White there and hold that up.
Yeah. Oh, you got the label pointed out.
Yep,
there?
he's got
There
it.
we go.
Perfect.
Nice. We need like a display table. That's what we need.
Just a little higher.
Yeah, just a little pink.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. Yeah, no, don't do it. Don't do that.
Stack.
You're gonna make something happen there.
Now, if any of my friends are asking me why I'm drinking an Oktoberfest beer in September, it's for professional reasons.
Well, they do hold Oktoberfest in September.
That's true.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So,
In
and
fact, Countryside Village is going to be having at the end of the month, I believe.
hmm Yep. They. I forget what day. I think it's the 29th, but I may
It's
be
right
wrong.
at the end of the month. Yeah.
Very end of the month. We did have the guys from Casual Pint on 2 weeks ago. They're hosting their own Oktoberfest there. They're actually closing off that. It's at Countryside Village, and they're actually closing off the center part of that. And they're going to have bounce houses. They're going to have grill outs and
Bring your kids. It's
All
a
that
family
stuff.
affair.
Also, if you're a fan of
Drink
actually
beer and watch your kid.
Yeah.
and every year the German American Society on 120th, just south of center there, they host a Oktoberfest every September. You might want to Uber there just because the parking is atrocious. Even though they've expanded their parking lot, it's still pretty bad.
Well, now, are they still doing something at, I think it's Gerda's on like 52nd Leavenworth?
There's actually a lot of people that host
Oh, yeah, I'm
Oktoberfest
sure
parties,
that's
but
beautiful.
the bigger ones are like German American Society.
Right.
A lot of the bigger breweries host a massive blowout so they can introduce their Oktoberfest beer.
Sure.
But yeah, it's I would say those you can find an Oktoberfest party sometime in September anywhere in the city, pretty much.
Right.
So to that,
Yeah. Cheers.
cheers to that.
Even though I've already taken a sip, but
Did you want the other one yet? Or are you still working?
I'm good.
We bueno. Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, very smooth, malty.
So on the show last time, now that we're doing it every other Sunday, it's trying to figure out my days. So 2 weeks ago when we had the show, he lined them up, and I guessed the German beer. I was like, that's the German beer. And it was. I was like, wow, my palate. I'm like, I had 3, and then after having the 3, I had the 4th, and I was like, it was the 3rd one. It was that 3rd one for sure. But then we had a guess on what was the local beer, and I think the majority of us guessed the lighter one, which actually was Sierra Nevada. The darker one, though, the first one, everybody was like, that was actually really good. The first one turned out to be Brickway, and that was the local one.
But you and you picked out the German.
I did pick out the German one.
Yes, for your ultimate favorite.
Yeah, it just had the Germans know how to do it. I mean, they've been doing it for years.
The masters of beer.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean those that don't know the story of Brickway, Zach, the owner, used to own Lucky Bucket, sold that, left, got his master's in brewing and distilling in Scotland.
I don't even think we even talked about this.
Yeah,
did we on the show?
Oh, yeah. Our new center. Well, not really centerpiece, but it is in the center of the background there.
Right.
It is our new 30-gallon barrel from Brickway Distillery, and we had talked about actually. This is barrel 2 of Epic Blackout Stout, which is the highest alcohol content beer that they have. And there is
still 17% or something.
I think it's about 17%, and there is still beer in here.
1-2 floor.
So it's been in this barrel. Yeah, it's been in this barrel about 8 months. I think we reached out to Mitchell. So thank you, Mitchell, by the way, for procuring that one for us. I asked him. I said, "How long has this been in the barrel?" He said about 8 months, and he said it's probably oxidized but drinkable. So we were going to do it tonight, but we forgot to get the cheesecloth because you do need to strain it out of here. So we will get to that though. So probably next podcast we will actually sample that, and hopefully we can have him on that. So while we do it,
that would be kind of cool.
It would be. He was going to try and be.
You better
here tonight.
bring some with him just in case this isn't good enough.
That would actually be cool. To
wink, wink, nudge, nudge, Mitchell, if you're watching.
It'd be interesting to sample between the two. Actually, have like store-bought Epic Blackout Stout.
There you go.
And then try it against
there you go.
the barrel age that
competition.
Well,
I like it.
It's going to be a lot
it's not
different.
Competition. It's your own.
Well, yeah, and this isn't going to be carbonated, so it's going to be quite different.
Now, if you need
time to get a kegerator.
If you need a cheesecloth, you could have told me. I got some.
You got some cheesecloths?
Yeah.
Well, I was at my folks' house for dinner tonight, and they had cheesecloths too. I just forgot to get them.
Yeah,
it happened.
It happens, and then of course, I was doing the panic of cleaning up down here. Otherwise I would have been pouring that over there. So, it's weird. We have these shows, and then it's held in time for like 2 weeks down here, and then it's like, oh God, yeah, I'm having another one. I better clean up.
It's what I would have done.
It is what it is. It's just like, I'll get to the dishes when I get to the dishes.
Yeah. I'm the same way. I'm the exact
I'll clean it up when I need to clean it up.
There you go.
All right, let's get back to the talk a little bit. American football.
Yes.
Gridiron.
Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, the gridiron. Right. My favorite
Is that
nickname.
copyright? I bet you that's copyrighted.
But I did the dun dun dun. So
so it's fine.
It's okay. It probably wasn't even on key.
They can't Shazam. They can't. It's all ran through Shazam. They can't Shazam that.
Yeah. One of my favorite nicknames for American football is Armored Chess. It's like, that's kind of cool.
Armored chess.
Armored chess. Because it's not all about just brute force. I mean,
no. It's X's and O's, man.
Yeah. It's about the right move.
X's and O's.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I did have. Do you want to start with trivia, or do you just want to?
Do whatever.
Get into history of American football here. Let's go. Let's start
with the history.
Let's start with the history.
Yeah.
So, American football gets its roots from football, or soccer as we call it here, and rugby. It's kind of an amalgam of the two of them, and it started back in the 1860s. And we had kind of a crude game of kicking the ball and handling it, and gained the attention of Harvard University, actually. Some of the first games, the actual first football game was played between Rutgers and Princeton back in 1869. And from there, it looked considerably different than it does today. They didn't add the forward pass until
They used
later.
an actual pig too, right?
Well, they used a rugby. They used a rugby football,
right?
So it wasn't tapered. That wasn't until later. The father of American football. Do you know the this trivia on this on who they consider the father of American football?
I haven't heard that term. I mean, my educated guess would be Newt Rockne, but probably some before that.
It was Walter Camp in 1880, and the first contract to play football, the first paid player, earned $500 for one game. That was 1892. It was William Heffelfinger.
Good old Heffelfinger.
Good old. Yep.
He was the life of the party.
Yeah, exactly.
He had that Heffelfinger.
Oh man, that move is amazing. Oh, sir. Well, and that kind of paved the way for professional football. Before that, it was played at universities and all that, in some form or another. Each university had kind of their own way of doing that until the rules were really established. The first professional, paid game was 1895. The first professional football league. They actually called it the NFL.
I'm just thinking 1895. I'm like, football's not that old of a sport,
Well, so
it's been around for a long time, but like as a actual, this is how we're all going to do it kind of sport. It really has only been around for.
We're talking about 150 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. The first professional football league was known as the NFL, but it wasn't like the NFL today, not the National Football League. But it was actually formed when baseball teams started playing football back in 1902.
Huh?
The nefarious foosball.
Is that like Michael Jordan playing baseball? Is
kind of like seriously, like the whole team. I think there was like
I don't know what sport to play.
There's like 6 baseball teams that ended up playing
You're
football.
really good at basketball. Just stick with that.
Yeah. The forward pass. I mean, we talked a little bit about that earlier today. That actually was introduced in 1908, so just a little over 100 years ago. The American Professional Football Association was formed in 1920, which changed its name 2 years later to the NFL, or National Football League, which we know today. The 1932 NFL playoff game was the birth of the modern-day American football as we know it today, where all the rules were what we have today. The first taper-ended football, so the actual football that we play with today.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't even think about that.
Yeah, that was actually introduced in 1934. Before that, it was closer to a rugby football.
Like a basketball?
No, it's basically overinflate a modern-day football, and that'd be kind of what it looks. It looks like a fat football. The first Heisman Trophy.
You're a fat football.
First Heisman Trophy. What do you think, JW? What year Heisman Trophy? The first one awarded.
I'm really not sure about that. Now,
that's okay. That's okay. You won all the other ones.
Actually, just a quick aside. My favorite thing about the Heisman Trophy is that in this day and age, John Heisman pretty much wouldn't have won it because he was a lineman.
Oh yeah,
right.
Ooh,
good point. Well, that was 1935. The first NFL draft was 1936. The first televised NFL game was 1939. That was also the year that helmets became mandatory.
Ring-a-ding-a-ding.
Yep.
What's going on? You can talk to me. What's going on?
We're frozen there.
Frozen there?
Oh, just go ahead and close out of here and then restart it for me. Thank you.
I'm still going live here.
1944, the AAFC was formed, which later, about 5 years later, merged with the NFL. That was kind of a short-lived thing.
I think the Cleveland Browns were created for that league.
For the AAFC.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there was that was the American Football League, the AFL, which also merged with the NFL, wasn't it?
I think that Paul Brown started the Bengals in the AFL after he, I guess, sold his interest or something in the Cleveland Browns. He went down to Cincinnati and started the Bengals, and they were in the NFL. But after the merger of the AFL and the NFL, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Baltimore Colts, and the Cleveland Browns moved over to the AFC along with all the AFL teams. There were a lot of arguments over who was going to move over to the AFC.
Yeah. Huh. Interesting.
I never knew that. Things that make you go,
All right. Anybody know the greatest game ever played? Anybody know what game that was, and bonus points if you know what year that was?
Zelda. No.
Okay. I know the Giants were in it, and it was sometime in the mid '50s. I'm thinking '56, but I mean my memory is very sketchy. It might be off.
Might be a year or two before you were born. So 1958, you were darn
58,
close.
okay.
And it was Colts versus Giants. So you at least had 50% of that. Well done. Man, you're getting all of them.
That's why he's on the show.
That's why.
Yeah,
why he's on the show.
yeah.
Talk about football. You bring Red JW.
Yeah, it was an NFL championship game. 1960, the American Football League was formed, and it merged with the NFL, which was the creation of the Super Bowl. And that merger happened in 1970. And then from there, I mean, we kind of get into, some nuances of
The
players
Super
and all that,
Bowl.
but everything post that is rules haven't really changed a whole lot.
Well, the AFL, I mean, I think it was important on a couple levels. Some I agree with, some I disagree with. I think the biggest contribution of the AFL was integrating the game of football. Now you didn't have the same, you didn't have like the exact same, official policy of segregation in the NFL that you did for a long time in baseball under Kennesaw Mountain Landis.
Mm-hmm.
But there was kind of a gentleman's agreement going on, whereas Lamar Hunt, in the AFL, basically said, I don't care, I don't care what color they are, as long as they win games. And I think it was Lamar Hunt who was the first owner whose team was majority African American, and so I think their rules for offense, wide open offense, kind of paved the way for the rules that, for better or for worse, are kind of biased in favor of passing. I mean, obviously, I agree very much with the integration. I don't like the rules about passing, but I mean, I know that a lot of people do, and at the end of the day, sports are entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's true. They also they credit with that forward pass way back when as kind of changing the landscape of football.
Yeah, I mean the reason the forward pass was legalized, I mean it kind of had to do with some of the different rules between the differences between football and rugby. I mean, in rugby to this day,
No holds bar. You just run into the other guy.
Well, you do.
Scrum.
Right.
But, see, that's the difference, though. In a scrum, I mean, there are very few times within a rugby match that you have, people just line up and hit. Otherwise, the action's more or less continuous. Whereas in American football, you actually line up and go at each other. And then there were some, formations like the flying wedge where, you had the line in front of you like linking arms and just running into people. And there were people dying on the field. I mean, there were some deaths on the field. And, at the time, Theodore Roosevelt was president. And, people forget that at that time, the Republican Party was very much on the left. I mean, they were the progressives, and Roosevelt was very much an activist president. Like get involved in everything, and he actually, got involved very much in the changing of football. So, in order to stop the deaths, I mean, he basically, kind of led the way for the formation of the NCAA, and they passed, rules for collegiate football. For instance, opening up the game by legalizing the forward pass and outlawing things like the flying wedge. And you still see similar concerns today with different rules for like kickoff returns and things like that, where the rules against wedge blocks are kind of changing because you want fewer concussions and things like that.
Well, that's a big thing. I did want to bring that up about the injuries in football, and that's really highlighted within the last 5 or 6 years, really.
The advancement of the gear that they wear.
Right, but you're not gonna even. It doesn't matter how technologically driven your helmet is. It's not gonna stop concussions.
No, you're throwing your body and your whole weight towards a person.
Well, you'd have to put a helmet around your brain to actually stop concussions.
I have kind of a controversial.
Okay, that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Forward motion.
Yeah, it's that jolt.
In
your
brain
head.
moves inside your skull.
Right.
And that's
Yeah, but and it also the reason they're really concerned about it causes a condition called CTE, or chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or punch drunk syndrome. Some people may know it as that, the old term. And basically, that's just you can't remember things. You're prone to mood swings. There's a lot of it almost resembles like a
jock. Oh wait,
like an angry form of dementia. Is kind of what it looks like. Go ahead.
Well, the University of Pittsburgh has been one of the foremost. The University of Pittsburgh Medical Center has been one of the foremost authorities as far as studying concussions. I kind of have a controversial opinion about concussions in that I think a lot of times they happen because there actually is too much armor. Let me put it this way. The best way that safety equipment is going to work is if you act as if it's not there. For instance, when you're driving a car down the highway, during a snowstorm, you always see the fool who thinks having anti-lock brakes and
no, that doesn't work.
Four-wheel drive. Yep.
You think that's an excuse to drive 5 over the speed limit. During a snowstorm, you usually see them in the ditch
Because you can't stop any faster.
Exactly. And in the same way, I think the problem is that people are so used to having this armor that they actually use it as a weapon.
precisely.
I think the reason rugby.
Well put, yeah.
Oh, thank you. I think the reason rugby is actually a safer sport is because they don't have this gear. You can wear a soft padded shell around your head, but
most people don't.
But you're not going to. You don't have that. You don't have that armor protecting you, so you have to look at what you tackle. You have to wrap up instead of ramming. I mean, last year, we all saw, how Ryan Shazier from the Steelers was hurt and he couldn't walk for a while. Now he can, thank goodness. He's probably wanted to play again. And this is something, a lot of fellow Steelers fans didn't like me to say, but it was his fault. If you look at the hit that hurt him, he lowered his head and he just speared his head, into some guy's back. And and I've been told, I guess, looking at some of his hits in the past, he'd done it before, and I'm thinking,
just because you did it before doesn't mean it's the right way to do it.
It's like you said, Jay. It's they're using their gear as a weapon.
Yeah,
there's not a concussion problem in rugby.
Right. I have some stats on like sports concussions.
Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting, but I do want to point out. There was a video, TED Talks that I was watching on the technology that's going into football helmets and all that, and one of the things they had a high school student because this particular high school, and I can't remember which one it was, but it's kind of at the forefront of technology for its students because they're high school students. They want to keep them safe. But one of the things he said was, and he was one of the kids that was wearing one of the new helmets, the new technology-driven helmets that were monitoring the concussion rates and they're fitted to the person and all that.
Yeah, probably the expensive. Patriots.
No, this is high school.
Oh, high school, gotcha.
Yeah, this is high school.
My bad.
But one of the things he said was that when you're wearing this new helmet, you really can't feel anything, so you can go at full bore. So they're actually using this gear to go harder and using it as a weapon. So I completely agree with what you said on that.
And I also think, I think the NFL, and the NCAA both have, some, they both, to be honest with you, have a, kind of a balance they're trying to achieve because, they don't really want to get rid of the harder hits. I think they're as concerned with concussions as they have to be. But they don't want to get rid of the hits because there are a couple things that both the NFL and the NCAA could do. They could limit full contact practices because, I mean, a lot of these, smaller head injuries that add up, they occur.
That's the thing. It's not always about big hits.
Yeah.
It's the continuation of doing even all these small hits. You do that over time.
When do you hurt your back? You don't hurt your back lifting the 10,000-pound box.
Well, you probably
hurt your back picking up the pencil.
You probably hurt your back
After that.
initially with a big impact, but it's going to take a small one to re-injure it.
And I also think that one thing that might help is eliminating the 3-point stance for linemen except for the center.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. What's
so
3-point
you
stance?
got your head down, which is like the like he was talking about the spearing. That 3-point stance when you're huddled down.
Oh, when you're in line formation,
exactly.
and you compact each other.
It's just
you're 2 feet in one
natural
hand.
that your forward motion is head first.
And, there are some defensive linemen who even line up in a 4-point stance, like literally they're on their hands and their toes because they want to get that leverage. They want to get as low as they can. Well, the problem is, when that happens, I mean, some of the biggest concussion problems have been, with linemen. I mean, Mike Webster, former Steeler, I mean, he was homeless for a while because again 3-point stance, head forward. I think the NFL really easy could say no 3-point stances except for the center, and I mean there's already a rule that on special teams plays you can't line up over the center. We could just have that as a rule all the time.
Right.
I do want to let me just go through this list really quick. So this is this is a breakdown of American sports,
Right.
That are concussion heavy, and this is in order of worst to least. It's not going to have everything on here, but the major ones for concussions. Football obviously is number one, which is why they're worried about it the most, just because it is a heavy contact sport. The number 2 is boys ice hockey. But actually, number 3, girls soccer is actually one of the ones that they're up and coming. I'm not sure why girls soccer is way above boys soccer, but it is. And I know why soccer's in there. You know, the heading the ball and all that repeatedly. That's going to lead to CTE or concussions and all that. But I don't know why girls soccer specifically is on the rise so fast.
I imagine it's because with no analog for football, for young women to play.
Because there is ladies football leagues out there.
The lingerie league, is that what you're talking about?
Oh no, there's
Sure.
there's
one of them.
Yeah.
There's
it's kind of.
No, there's a semi-pro women's league.
True. That's true. Yeah.
I worked out at the
I
same.
have 2 friends on that league.
Oh, sure. I used to work out when I lived in Pittsburgh with at the same gym as the nose guard from the Pittsburgh Passion. Like she could outlift like 90% of the guys in the gym, including me.
Right. Well, they've got something to prove.
Yeah.
Well, that's what
and
that's what you're lending to here. Yeah.
Well, in this case, what I'm lending to is like as far as school sports, because a lot of these schools don't have girls or women's football. I imagine that soccer would be a major outlet for some of the aggressive women.
Well, and that's another one. Even though it's higher on the list, it's still below football. And the only pads that soccer players wear are shin guards. I mean, if you're a goalie, you're going to wear gloves, but that's about it. And especially if you're doing indoor soccer, not only do you have the ball to worry about for head injuries, you have the wall to worry about for head injuries.
A bunch of guys sitting here at the table. Girls are crazy.
Well, I mean, boys soccer's on there too, but it's a couple down from. It's actually below lacrosse.
I think it's like Jay said though. That's their outlet.
They've got something to prove. They're like, we can be as good as the boys. This is our. They go bigger. They go harder. They go stronger.
It's their venue to be aggressive and.
True. Let's see what else we got. We got boys wrestling is after soccer. Girls basketball. Girls softball. Boys basketball. Girls field hockey.
Softball. I wouldn't.
I mean, it's I mean, have you seen how fast some of these girls can pitch?
It's a small field too, man.
Yeah, but like you were talking head injuries or
concussions. Yeah, this is just concussions. Yeah.
All
right. Boys basketball, girls field hockey, cheerleading is on there.
Dropping them. You gotta throw them in the air.
It's a dangerous sport, fellas.
Right.
Girls volleyball. Yeah, girls volleyball. Boys isn't, but girls volleyball's on there. I'm guessing it's something similar to soccer, just because of the head injuries from the ball being spiked into their head.
Well, because of Title IX,
going after one.
I guess you could bounce off the ground.
Yeah.
Well, because of Title IX,
you got a good bounce on that one.
Yeah, men's volleyball just doesn't exist in most places. I mean, because of all the men, because the numbers are skewed, because men's football teams are really big. I mean, volleyball is usually women's sport only at most colleges.
Yep.
Last one on the list, and this isn't a complete list, and this was from a few years ago, but is girls gymnastics.
Oh, sure.
Which would be very similar to cheerleading.
You just brought up something there with college sports and all that stuff. I was into swimming. I was like, I don't mean to boast or anything, but I was really good at what I did back in junior high and high school for the state of Nebraska. And when I got to college, I was like, hey, I got a lot of gold medals in swimming. Let me win some for you guys here at the University of Nebraska in Omaha. UNL, I do believe, had a men's team, I think. But I went to UNO, and they were like, no, we don't have a men's team. We have a women's team. I was like, oh, okay, cool. So I guess my career stops here with swimming. They were like, well, there is a there is a men's league that meets on Saturdays in the winter. And I'm like, oh, no, I'm not going to just swim with a bunch of dudes. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah. We have football. We have wrestling.
Yeah, so they had to counteract. Mm-hmm. They had to, because there were so many men's sports of this, it had to be equal with the women, which, the men play sports. We're going to have more. I get trying to be fair. I get that. But to take out programs for men that want to do the programs, like, win gold medals for the swim team for men, and we can't do it, I don't know, it's challenging.
It's a double-edged sword.
Well, and, the thing that causes trouble is that, on one hand, football, again, it provides a lot of men, that, universities have to balance by putting women's sports on there. But then, that's what brings in the money.
Right. I doubt I'd be bringing a whole lot of money in with swimming. I don't know.
Except, like...
Unless you were Michael Phelps.
I might
have.
In the case
of... seen me in a Speedo.
Sure. Well, in the case of UNO, of course, it's hockey now.
Right.
To the extent that I think there... a couple of years ago, Trev Alberts...
He axed football and wrestling, yeah.
Well, because he wants the Huskers to have kind of a monopoly, I guess. I don't know.
Well, and I think that was all about money, though.
Yeah.
That was huge for UNO. Wow.
Yeah. He had some tough decisions to make, but
yeah,
they're doing okay.
Yeah. I missed a little bit about it. So are we moving on the...
Yeah, whatever. I was just kind of talking about sports in general. Yeah.
And how he looks in his Speedo.
Awesome. I was there for that.
They never got me to shave my head. I was like, I'll just wear a swim cap.
Or your legs. Did you shave your legs?
I shaved my legs. I did. I shaved my legs and my arms.
Nice. Did you nick yourself?
No.
All right, so we do some trivia. Moving on.
Please.
Yeah. All right. Please move on. I don't know to talk about that.
You want to do some more trivia, JW?
Oh yeah.
That was fun.
Oh, Britt, we're
getting low.
I guess we should take a break.
Well, I don't know. JW over here.
Well, he's new to the show, so he can go at his own pace. It's fine.
Right. We'll get you. Are we doing the crowler? Is that what we're doing?
We're doing the growler. Well, it's not the crowler. It's the growler.
Crowler.
Yeah, this is yet another local one. This is DAAANG, DAAANG from Zipline. It's an IPA. It is 7.6 ABV, 45 IBU. So this one's a little heavier hitter.
Just hand cups over here, and I'll deal with it here.
Sure.
Can you hand me the other little one there, or the other?
Yeah, absolutely.
Muchos gracias. Thank you. This is the special sauce over here.
Special sauce
for a special person. So we're gonna ask the viewers.
I need a cup though.
You're gonna have to go get one.
I got you one.
Yeah, you have to go get one. Mama, my bad. And after this brief moment,
thank you.
Fancy
brief
tulip glass there.
Interlude here. Hey, this is a nice
it is
holder you got here.
Yeah, from Casual Pint. Those guys are a bit of awesome out there.
Yeah. Was this your free growler, Phil?
It was.
There you go. Perfect. Thanks for the donation to the show.
If you're part of the membership program, which we talked about when they were on here, you get a free growler a month.
Holla, holla.
Yeah.
Fermented tea.
Yes. That was the hint there. Nice. All right.
Still drinking with us?
Yes, he is. He's got it.
I like it.
All right. So who's ready for some trivia? Actually, we got a clunky on this one.
You ready for some football?
Are you ready for this one? And then
cheers. Cheers.
Yes.
Oh, dang. Dang.
That is a very citrus forward, juicy IPA. Man, that is good.
What do you I know coming onto this show, JW had posted online about an IPA. JW, you want to read your little post and comment about IPAs?
I want
to hear it. It was actually pretty funny. I did a little ha-ha.
You did it. The modern purpose of India Pale Ales is to give complete and utter hipsters a way to brag about how macho they are without doing anything more than drinking disgustingly bitter beer. As a bonus, it gives them a way to remind themselves never to smile, as they simply can take a sip of beer whenever they are tempted to do so, and consequently return to frowning and grimacing.
Bitter beer face.
Right?
Oh, man, that's
good.
Funny.
It's good.
That is
clever.
Funny. I will say that when I started the getting into the IPA category, I did not like IPAs.
It's
kind of like the sour.
I started with Bud Light, and what was it? Bud Light and Bud Select.
Oh,
that was the choice, was Bud Select.
Yeah.
Well, when I was drinking, you guys converted me.
Oh yeah, it's craft beers. Yeah. There's just flavor.
It's like going into wine. When you first start drinking wine, you don't go for the Merlot. You don't, because you're just gonna wreck your palate. And you're not gonna know what to do with yourself. And you're like, I hate wine. You want to start with like a blend, like a Menage a Trois, which is a great wine, 3 wines into one, and it's fruity and tasteful. But then you work up to those bolder wines, those Cabernet Sauvignons and things of that nature. So same with beer. You start with the Michelob Ultras and you start with the Bud Lights, and then you work your way to an IPA.
Start getting into like Killian's Red or Blue Moon, and then you start going into your heavier beers, your ambers and darker, and
just don't steer clear of the near beer.
Bro.
No, don't need any of that.
O'Doul's.
O'Doul rules.
Oh man. All right, who's ready for some trivia on this one? Well, thoughts on this one? I guess.
It's so fruity.
This is amazing.
It is. What, citrusy?
Very floral. Very floral. Fruity.
Are you an IPA fan, JW?
Not generally. I like a lot of the heavier beer. My favorite beer, besides the Midas Touch is actually an Italian beer, Moretti La Rosa.
Interesting.
I was drinking that this weekend at the La Italian Festival.
Random.
Yeah.
Well, that's what they had.
It was
either that or Coors Light, and I'm like, I'll take the
fact that he would mention it, and then you were like,
the Italy beer,
literally had some
Italian beer.
I still remember when a mutual friend of ours, and I'm not going to mention any names, but
we can use first names.
Well, we went to. I took them to La Festa, and she said, I have never been to an Italian festival before. I said, well, there is no such thing as an Italian festival.
It's Italian.
Because we did not come from Italy.
Did you go this weekend?
I didn't go because I figured like the whole thing was going to get rained out anyway. So
we went on Friday.
Okay.
And so it was the start of the festival, and chaotic parking everywhere, and a massive amount of people, a lot of lines and stuff like that. But I'll tell you one thing that was absolutely fun to do is people watch.
Oh, absolutely.
At that festival, so many people, just like you just look at this guy and you're just like, oh man, he better not be driving home.
My favorite place where La Feste ever took place, I mean, it unfortunately doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, it bounced around in a few places, right? It's been going on for like 50 years or something like that.
Oh, something like that. Yeah, I remember back when it was at the Royal Grove at Peony Park. I mean, now there, of course, that was.
You just dated yourself, man.
I used to live in Penny Park.
He was homeless for a while.
Well, they took down Penny Park and then they built apartments there.
Under the roller coaster.
So, that's what you came into those apartments.
Oh yeah,
it's like living under an L train.
But
we're having our own conversation.
Penny Park was amazing. They had an amazing ballroom. They had an amazing lake / pool. But yeah, I can't believe they tore that place down.
You remember the lift chair that you could circle
the whole park?
Oh sure,
yeah.
Well, and this outdoor, this Royal Grove, this outdoor area, where La Festa took place. I mean, it's where like a lot of us used to go to. Sprite Night, if anyone remembers that.
Sprite Night.
Oh yeah.
I don't.
On Thursday nights, especially during the summer, they would hold dances, and like the major. You might have heard of a former Sweet 98 98.5 DJ Hot Scott. He died a couple months ago. I mean just horribly young, very tragic. But in the late 80s, early 90s, he used to like MC these Thursday night dances. At again the Royal Grove. I mean it had an outdoor dance floor, stage, like great place for concerts and whatnot.
Nice.
And again, this is where La Festa was as well, and they had they used to have these like great cover bands, and I mean especially in the last night of the festival, it was a blast, and and I think the group, I mean they bought their own place to hold it, and I mean it was a very smart financial move, but like you said, I mean the parking
keep the money in the family.
Yeah, but like you said, the parking and the logistics are just kind of weird.
Yeah, the Italian festival left Penny Park and then they closed. So we'll just blame it on the Italians. No, just kidding. No.
Whoa. Not really. Yeah.
Not really. Just kidding.
All right. We had a little bit of a tangent there.
Yeah, we did. We kind of went off on something.
That's all right. We're gonna do some trivia now. So,
all right. Perfect.
All right, get your thinking caps on, guys. Britt, I'm gonna see how much you know on these things.
Like none.
No. Yeah. 0. All right.
How many cameras were used would be a good start off question there. I'd be like, 42 cameras. Usually you're.
All right, which football team has the longest unchanged name? Bonus points if you know how long it's been around. This is NFL we're talking about.
Ooh.
Would it give you like 10 seconds?
Packers.
Okay, there's one guess.
I'm going to guess it's the Cardinals.
You got to guess there, Eric. Are you still thinking on that one?
Maybe Dallas Cowboys? Cowboys? I don't know.
No.
You already registered your
I was going to say Giants.
Okay. All right. It is the Green Bay Packers.
Boom!
1921. They've been the longest one. There was a couple that were in 1922, but Green Bay Packers they've never changed their name. Well done, Britt.
Yeah.
All right.
Sometimes it works.
Let's see here. So according to statistics in the U.S., NFL is the most popular game by viewership.
Sure.
What are number 1 or number 2 and number 3?
Baseball.
Sports?
Yeah, sports.
Baseball and basketball.
I'm going to say NBA and NCAA football.
You got to guess, JW?
No guess. I have no idea.
Oh, Britt got it. It was baseball and basketball.
Boom, 2 for 2.
Dang, dude.
Where's the next trivia night? Oh yeah, Wednesday nights at Casual Pint.
Yeah. Okay, so this one for just this last year, because they don't have statistics for this year, but last year the World Cup was watched by 562 million people worldwide. How many people, roughly? I'll give you a wide berth on the number, but how many people watched the Super Bowl last year? So you had 562 million people watch the World Cup, and that was the full length version. They actually had 700 million watch it for at least 20 minutes.
250 million for the football.
Okay.
375.
Okay.
This is like The Price is Right.
I know, right?
I'm gonna go with the low ball. I'll say like 150 million.
You were actually the closest. 111.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. That's
striking out here big time.
I cut it in half. I was like, half.
Do you know which Super Bowl was the most watched in U.S. history? Which year?
1995.
I'm gonna be.
He's doing the Hail Marys. Everyone, they've been working out so far.
Yeah, right. 2 for 3.
I'm going to be like a little biased and say Super Bowl 43 in 2009.
Okay. Erik, what do you got?
I'm not even going to guess on this one.
2015 was the most
really?
watched Super Bowl in U.S. history. I should have done more research into why, but I did not do that.
All right, hang on. So this was this February 15?
I should have guessed a younger year instead of an older year.
That's all right.
Only for the fact that technology is getting easier for everyone to watch. You could watch a football game right here on your iPad.
Mm-hmm.
You could watch it on your phone. You could, Skype somebody and watch it through the Skype.
Till they shut you down.
Well, if you're Skyping with somebody, one-on-one, you could watch it through their Skype. Be like, hey, point your phone at the TV so I can watch it. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. There's just better ways of communication from here on out. It's not going to get smaller. It's always just going to get bigger,
All right, next one. There are 4 teams of the total 32 in the NFL that have never made it to the Super Bowl.
4 teams that have not made it.
That have not ever made it to a Super Bowl.
The Dolphins?
I think Cleveland and Detroit are 2 of them.
Okay. This can be a team effort on this one because there's 4 teams, so I will allow you to collaborate on this.
Wait, the Dolphins made it to a Super Bowl.
Yeah. Yeah.
I say it to him.
and I will give you a hint because there are 4 answers on this one. You've already got 2 of them.
Houston is another one.
Expansion teams. I think expansion teams.
Yeah, I'm out on this one. I don't even know.
That's all right.
Okay, so
does Utah have a football team?
Tennessee?
No, well, it might be Tennessee, but just back. I'm just trying to remember if they made them as the Houston Oilers. I know the Houston Texans have never made it.
Right.
Cleveland, as far as hasn't.
The Browns.
Detroit hasn't.
Yep.
The Lions and.
So you've got you have 3 of the 4. So you're looking for 1 more.
All right.
Nice job.
Oh,
so it's not Tennessee.
No.
No, because they
made it as the Oilers.
Well, yeah, because like they played that. They played that really close game against the Rams where like Mike Jones tackled that guy like half a yard short of the goal line. That was when like Grant Wistrom won his ring as
right.
Rams. So, all right, let's see. I'm just kind of like
you're doing well on this one. You're like 75%. That's pretty darn good.
Thank you. I'm kind of like going like division by division. It's
and time's up.
All right,
yeah.
Jacksonville Jaguars.
The Jaguars.
Yep.
Didn't everybody used to sport those coats?
They did.
The Jaguars. Like, you guys never made it to the Super Bowl. Cool. Thanks for sponsoring the coat.
All right. Which player has the most MVPs?
Brady.
And we're for those of you that are trying to play along at home, we are only doing the NFL here.
You're right.
It probably is Brady, actually.
Peyton Manning.
Oh, Manning.
He actually has.
I actually was thinking Manning, and I'm like, I'm not going to say it because I'm.
Yeah, he has 5. 2003, 4, 8, 9, and 13.
Oh, league MVPs, duh. That's my fault. That's on me.
Right. I should have specified as the host of the trivia night here. All right.
My fault.
I'm just messing.
Corporate sponsors amount for how many? What percentage of Super Bowl tickets?
Oh, 70?
I'm not even gonna go with
70%.
Got no idea.
80%.
Oh, I mean,
that's pretty darn close. All right. Which team is the only team to have a perfect season? And this includes
Patriots,
Miami.
It's got to be Miami.
Yep. Yeah. 1972. 1972, Miami Dolphins.
Mm-hmm. Well,
man, that was quick.
Chris Berman.
I was talking about him just a little bit ago.
Well, back when Chris Berman used to have NFL primetime, like he'd always every time the last undefeated team would lose a game, he'd always play a popping the cork sound with a Miami Dolphins 1972 Miami Dolphins. Yeah.
Chuck Norris, when he was 15 years old, he visited a convent tucked in the hills of Tuscany, Italy.
Mm-hmm.
He had sex with all the nuns there.
Ooh.
And they gave birth to the 1972 Miami Dolphins.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Perfect.
All right. So I gave you guys if you guys were paying attention before the talk started, which player in the NFL has the most touchdowns?
Finkel and Einhorn. Finkel.
Laces out. Einhorn is a man.
Sorry. There's
your 1990s pop culture reference for today.
Most touchdowns.
Most touchdowns. And also probably on one of my favorite teams in the 90s.
The Raiders?
Negative. That was not my 90s team.
Well, if
was the Cowboys your 90s team?
I'll guess.
Was the Cowboys your 90s team?
No.
I'll guess Rice.
If I say it,
Jerry Rice.
I guess it's Rice.
Rice.
Yep, Jerry Rice.
Nice.
He has 208 touchdowns from 1985 to 2004, and he also holds over 100 NFL records, which is a record in itself.
Oh, Jerry Rice.
He's a beast.
How many cows does it take to make one season worth of NFL footballs?
Ooh, I thought you were going to say one football. I'm like, that should only be part of a cow, but season worth of footballs.
One season in the NFL. How many cows does it take to make
12?
No. It's got to be way more than that.
I don't know. Because they're only using the skin, right?
I'm going to say 100.
12 cows.
Are you going to play the overs on this one? You played the unders on the last one.
Yeah, I'll say 200.
600.
Holy
600
cow.
For one season. I mean, if you think about the NFL,
way off.
They throw footballs out left and right. So, I mean, if it bounced wrong, they're going to throw it out. I mean,
if it's not inflated properly.
Oh, man.
I always thought it was pigskin.
Yep.
But maybe it used to be. I mean,
maybe
All right. How many touchdowns have been scored on a 99-yard rush?
One, and it was Tony Dorsett from the Dallas Cowboys.
Bonus points if you can guess the year.
It was in the 70s. I do know Amon Green came really close. He did a 98-yard with the Green Bay Packers.
Mm-hmm. It was 1983. You were darn close with the 70s. Right. So, but you had all the other ones right. Holy crap. That was awesome.
Boom.
All right. In a 3-hour typical game. So a typical game is going to last about 3 hours.
Yeah.
How many times is for how many minutes of that 3 hours is the ball in play?
Ooh, 1 hour?
Well, I mean, you have 1 hour of clock time, but I mean, how much of that, is the ball set up? I mean, I'm not really sure.
Actually in play.
Yeah, so 1 hour.
I mean,
1 hour out of
you have an hour.
No,
of clock time.
It's going to be less than an hour because the clock's ticking and the ball's not in play.
There's only 1 hour of play.
Gotcha.
Even though the game lasts 3 hours, there's only technically 1 hour.
I'm just going to go 35 minutes.
That actually sounds kind of fair. I'll just say, you have about, you mean, let's see,
38 minutes and 24 seconds.
I'm not doing seconds, man. Just,
I'm going to go low ball here and say 20 minutes.
Okay. What is your guess?
He said 38.
38.
All right,
minutes.
11.
11
minutes of a 3 hour game is,
Actual game.
Yeah.
That's good. I like that statistic.
I know, right? We had you had mentioned the Green Bay Packers with them on green. What does the G stand for on their uniform?
Good.
Goal.
What does the G stand for, like on their helmet?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just tempted to say, Green Bay, but since you're
greatness,
since you're talking about, since you're actually asking this question, it's going to be
that simple.
else,
it can't be that simple, right?
It can't be that simple now. Yeah. So I'm going to let you tell me.
Actually, Britt was right. Greatness.
See.
Yep.
I started you down that path.
You did. Thanks, buddy.
All right.
This is great, Brian. Nice job on trivia night. We've never done that before on the show, so it's perfect.
Any guesses as to the annual revenue of the NFL?
Oh, billions.
It starts with a B.
Billions.
I will give you that. It's already, you've already guessed that. It's in the billions.
Yeah.
And bonus points if you can do profit annually.
$470 billion.
That's a lot of freaking money, bro. That's $500 billion.
Yeah.
That's okay. All right. Well,
yeah.
I'm gonna go a little more conservative and say maybe like 10 billion.
Now, are you counting like sponsors giving money to the NFL and all that?
This is total revenue of the NFL.
I might have shot a little high on that one.
I'm gonna say 10 and profits like 2.
Okay.
I'm not even gonna try this one.
Pretty damn close. It's $9 billion is their revenue for annual, and it's $1 billion profits.
That's pretty close.
So, you're pretty darn close. Gosh, this one's going to be hard to do trivia because it's more of just a really interesting fact.
Just give us the facts, man. We don't have to guess on this one. You just tell us like how it is, Mr. History Teacher.
How did the Baltimore Ravens get their name?
Because they have a lot lot of birds there.
Edgar Allan Poe.
The fans voted
it's
it.
a good movie.
It was
movie.
I'm thinking
what? Wait, okay.
I'm thinking of Alfred Hitchcock.
Sorry.
Let the wizard throw his guess out.
Sorry, JW.
That's all right. I think the fans voted for it because Edgar Allan Poe was from Baltimore. Lived in Baltimore for a while.
That is true, and it is named for the poem, "The Raven." Yep.
By
Edgar Allan Poe. And the team mascots are Edgar, Allan, and Poe. Yeah.
So they're giant mascots of Edgar Allan and Poe.
Yeah.
They just sit with the audience.
All right. This is my last
writing on my scroll.
Last trivia question here. And we already know
a lot of fun.
Yeah, we already know the clear winner, but
yeah, no, that's good.
Yeah.
Hey, I had a pretty good streak.
You did for a little while there.
3 or 4 of them I got.
All right, last trivia question. What is the which team is the wealthiest team in the NFL?
Dallas Cowboys.
Bonus points if you can tell me how much they're worth. And or their annual revenue.
I'm only going to say the Patriots because, I mean, they got a lot of money. And they know how to deflate footballs.
Deflate gate.
Sorry, no, I was just kidding.
I think you're trying to
No,
distract
I'm not
him.
kidding. I'm not kidding
You're
at
trying
all.
to distract him.
Yeah, annual revenue. That's
I mean, that's bonus points. I mean, first you got to come up with the team, and then you got to come up with their revenue and or net worth. I'll give you points for either one.
I'm
Either
gonna
of the three, I should say.
I'm gonna take a shot in the dark and say San Francisco.
Okay. 49ers for those who are
Yes.
playing along at home.
Just don't go walking around in that city.
I'm not even going to try to guess revenue. I'm going with Cowboys.
Okay, you are correct with Cowboys.
There you go.
All right, it's 2.1 billion
With a B.
With the B is
With the B.
is their net
So,
worth.
over a fifth of the NFL's revenue
Is from
is
one
from
team.
one team.
Yep, and their annual revenue is 269 million, which is also about 1/5.
About 1/5 of NFL revenue.
Things are bigger in Texas.
I guess the side trivia here. This is the last bonus question for trivia. How much, on average, is a cheerleader paid per game?
Ooh.
Per game?
Per game?
Per game.
$50, I think.
I don't know. $500.
16 games.
Time keeps on slipping.
Like
slipping.
carry the two.
I'm going to say $1,000 a game.
They earn anywhere from $75 to $125 per game.
Dang.
Yep, they used to. That's increased. It was 50 to 75 for a while, but yeah, recently it's 75 to 125, and that's only because of Dallas cheerleaders doing a lawsuit because they have to pay for their own. By the time they pay for their own makeup, laundering their own uniforms, they almost lose money by participating in the games.
Well, it's true, and
Crazy fact.
Yeah,
and I mean after,
and there are, I think six. Sorry, there are about 6 teams I think that don't even have cheerleaders.
the Steelers are one of them.
And there was actually one
We ain't got time for that.
one Super Bowl where there were no
That's what-
cheerleaders.
Yeah, literally.
That's what the Rooney family actually said. I mean, they said it was kind of a waste of money and and time. And
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at some of the teams with the best female fan bases in the country, they're the teams without cheerleaders. And I mean, really with the like you look at this. I mean, I've seen like clips of the reality show where for the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders, and I mean, like it's just as hard to make that team in their own way as it is to make the football team. And you just think like with
The standards that they require for absolutely.
yeah, I mean, you have this like coach saying, you're getting a little fat on there, and you think where, but you just think like
It's a hyper reality of what they need to be. It's like, no, you look great. You're fine.
Well, I'm just saying I can imagine going through all that, that stuff, for like making millions of dollars a year or something. But when you're making like not even $100 a game.
And that's kind of where the disparity lies. I mean, you're watching a game now.
Yeah.
That being said, even though you are watching a game, the NFL,
The
you're watching.
Dallas cheerleaders have their own show.
Yes, and
So you would
they
think
do
they
a
would
lot
make
of
more money.
they do a lot of
because
charity
that
work.
show.
Yeah, but per game they only make that much money.
Crazy.
So, I mean, the fact that we're watching a bunch of millionaires play football, I mean, there is that, and then the cheerleaders earn that. But statistically, if you're talking professional sports, football players on average earn a lot less than baseball and basketball, even though football
Is a rougher sport.
more watched and higher sponsor.
Oh.
So
And a rougher sport, I would say that.
Right,
Between basketball and baseball.
and I'm sure JW knows, up until 2015, NFL was actually classified as a nonprofit organization.
Oh yeah.
They
And
just started paying taxes as of 2015.
Well, thank you.
well,
Yeah.
and one of the reasons for that was because there are a lot of people who who had some real problems with that, and who were demanding some of their financial records that nonprofits have to disclose. And so
Talking about nonprofit status of the NFL.
In order not to have to do that anymore, in order not to have to release those figures anymore, they decided to classify themselves as a profit. Now, I'm not saying the teams were nonprofit. It's just that the league itself.
NFL as a correct. That is correct. All right, that's all I had for trivia. So, has anybody got anything else they want to share on football? Or we're about an hour and a half in, so
Yeah, we're doing good.
Yeah, doing real well. Is there anything anybody wants to bring up on football that may or may not be known by the general public or by us here, which would be pretty easy?
Yeah, right. You want to chime in?
Well, at least for this side of the table.
Right.
That side of the table is pretty football knowledge.
savvy on that side.
It's really right there.
That's
Yeah,
why.
right.
It's really right there.
One corner. Yeah.
I'm like the color commentator to your broadcast.
I
I'm
appreciate
the
that.
plucky humor.
I appreciate that.
All right. Well, I think we're gonna wind down on this. I appreciate you coming out, JW.
Yeah,
thank
thank
you
you.
so much
Great.
for
Thank you.
dropping a
lot of
knowledge
fun.
bomb here on
I had
our
a won-
podcast.
I had a wonderful time.
Good. Well, good. I hope you had some good beer and we had good conversation on
Absolutely.
the NFL. Eric, thank you
Yeah,
again
thank you
for joining
guys.
us.
This is a great
Once
one to
again.
be at. Thank you.
Yeah.
Ready for some football?
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun.
Well, this has been an episode of Drink Talk. This was episode 69
Yes, it
of
was.
our podcast. We were talking on American football. Yeah, we talked a little bit about college football, more specifically Nebraska football here at the beginning, and then we got into the NFL and had some trivia and had a good time,
Oh,
and
that was
actually
great.
had some really good drinks. We started with Nebraska Pils from Nebraska Brewing Company. We did Oktoberfest from Brickway Brewing Company, and we did DAAANG IPA from Zipline out of Lincoln, Nebraska. All local guys, all good beers and good conversation.
It's all about supporting your local team.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, stay tuned afterwards. We're going to start a fantasy football league here, guys. Just kidding.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. The ones online that are watching us live, appreciate that in the comments. I will go back over the next 24 hours and revisit some of those comments. Thank you for joining us. My name's Brian.